First contact under fire. The swarm arrived on a Tuesday morning, not with the dramatic flair of Hollywood invasion films, but with the cold precision of an apex predator. Commander Elena Santos stood at the Houston Space Command's main viewport, watching as the first signs of humanity's introduction to galactic society appeared in the form of strange gravitational distortions at the edge of lunar orbit. "Multiple contacts, sir," Lieutenant Park reported, his fingers dancing across the old-style mechanical keyboard. The command center still used them. Electromagnetic pulse shielding, Santos remembered. Another holdover from Cold War paranoia that was about to prove surprisingly useful. The objects emerging from the distortions weren't ships, at least not by any conventional definition. They looked more like crystalline formations, geometric patterns that seemed to fold through dimensions human eyes weren't meant to process. Beautiful, in their way. Deadly, without question. 30 seconds to weapons range, Park announced. His voice remained steady, professional. They'd drilled for first contact scenarios for years, even if nobody truly believed they'd happen. Still no response to hails across all frequencies. Santos nodded, her dark eyes fixed on the main display. "Launch the drones. Let's see what we're dealing with." A swarm of small, automated craft detached from the lunar defense platforms. Basic things, really, hardly more than cameras and engines strapped to minimal frames. The kind of disposable tech that Earth's space forces had perfected over decades of operating on tight budgets. The alien vessels, if that's what they were, reacted instantly. Beams of coherent energy lanced out, too fast for human reflexes to track. But the drones were already moving, executing random evasive patterns guided by algorithms developed for asteroid mining operations. Most of them died anyway, but they'd served their purpose. "Energy weapons," Santos muttered. "Sophisticated." But she leaned forward, studying the replay. Traditional targeting systems. They're tracking heat signatures and electromagnetic emissions. That was interesting. Very interesting. "All stations," she commanded, her voice carrying the weight of humanity's first military response to an alien threat. "Implement Ghost Protocol. Shut down all non-essential systems. Minimum power states only. And get me a secure line to NORAD. We're about to test whether all those Cold War bunkers were worth maintaining." As her orders rippled out across Earth's defensive network, Santos allowed herself a grim smile. The aliens, whoever they were, had clearly expected to face an advanced civilization. They'd come prepared for energy shields, for quantum computers, for all the trappings of a spacefaring race. Instead, they'd found humanity, still crawling out of its gravity well, still relying on chemical rockets and ballistic weapons, still remembering how to fight wars with nothing but steel and grit. "They're launching something," Park reported. "Small objects, highly accelerated. Impact trajectory." "Kinetic weapons," Santos finished. "Basic. Effective." She paused. "Familiar." The alien projectiles streaked toward Earth's orbital defenses. They were met by a wall of point defense fire. Simple, computer-guided autocannons firing streams of tungsten shells. Old technology, by any standard. But sometimes, Santos reflected, old worked just fine. "Multiple impacts on Grid 7, Park called out. "Minimal damage." They're not penetrating the Whipple shields." Santos nodded. The simple spaced armor that protected against micrometeorites worked just as well against alien projectiles. Physics didn't care about the source of the impact. "Launch countermeasures," she ordered. "And get me Admiral Chen. Tell him it's time to show our visitors what humanity learned from centuries of killing each other." As the command center erupted into controlled chaos, Santos watched the alien formations begin to shift. They were adapting, learning. But so was humanity. And if there was one thing humans had perfected over millennia of warfare, it was adaptation. "Signal from the Chinese space station," Park reported. "They're launching their new railgun platform." Santos smiled. The weapons had been a point of international tension just days ago. Funny how quickly humans could unite when faced with an external threat. Tell them to hold fire until the aliens commit to their next attack run, she instructed. And patch me through to all commands. It's time humanity showed the galaxy why you don't pick a fight with a species that never stopped preparing for war. The battle for Earth's orbit was about to begin. And humanity, late arrival to the galactic stage that it was about to demonstrate why sometimes the most dangerous technology wasn't the newest. It was the most tested. Operation Earthborn. Dr. Maya Patel hadn't slept in 36 hours, but her hands remained steady as she made the final adjustments to the targeting system. Around her, the underground facility beneath the New Mexico desert hummed with activity as engineers and scientists worked to integrate human ingenuity with recovered alien technology. The crystalline structure responds to quantum fluctuations, she explained to General Rodriguez, who watched with barely concealed impatience. Their entire tech base assumes advanced energy manipulation, but that's not what we're going to give them. The general nodded, his weathered face illuminated by the soft glow of the alien artifact they'd salvaged from a downed crystal ship. How long until it's ready for field deployment? Maya allowed herself a small smile. It's ready now. We're just making it better. The prototype before them looked almost primitive compared to the sleek alien technology. A retrofitted M1A2 Abrams tank, its traditional cannon replaced with something that would have looked more at home in a 19th century artillery battery. The barrel was wrapped in salvaged alien crystals, but the mechanism itself was pure human engineering. "Show me," Rodriguez ordered. Maya typed a series of commands into her laptop. Deliberately non-networked, running an operating system that predated the internet. The tank's new weapon system hummed to life, crystals pulsing with an inner light. "The aliens use quantum fields for everything," she explained. "Weapons, shields, communications, but they've forgotten something fundamental about warfare." She paused, checking the final calibrations. Sometimes the simplest solution is the most effective. The test range before them stretched for miles into the desert. At the far end, they'd set up a section of alien hull material, protected by a captured shield generator. Similar defenses had shrugged off humanity's most advanced missiles. "Fire when ready," Rodriguez commanded. Maya pressed enter. The tank's modified cannon roared, not with the sharp crack of traditional gunpowder, but with a deep, resonant boom that seemed to shake the very air. The projectile that emerged was a simple steel rod, accelerated not by chemical propellants, but by magnetic fields channeled through alien crystals. The alien shield flared and shattered. The rod passed through as if the barrier wasn't there, punching through the hull material like paper. Their shields are tuned to stop energy weapons and high-velocity impacts, Maya explained, satisfaction evident in her voice. They never considered we might use their own technology to launch projectiles at medium velocity, fast enough to do damage, but slow enough to slip through their defensive frequencies. Rodriguez studied the damage readouts with newfound respect. How many vehicles can we modify? Every tank, artillery piece, and naval gun in NATO's arsenal could be converted within weeks. The Chinese and Russians are already working on their own versions. Maya's dark eyes gleamed with fierce pride. "We're not just adapting their technology, General. We're showing them what happens when you give humanity's war machines something new to work with." The general's phone buzzed. A secure line, hardened against alien interference. His expression darkened as he listened to the report. "They're launching another offensive," he informed Maya. 3 carrier groups detected approaching from the dark side of the moon. "Looks like they've adapted their tactics after the orbital battle." Maya was already moving toward the prototype. "Then it's time for field testing. The aliens think they understand warfare because they've mastered quantum physics. Let's show them what happens when they face a species that's been perfecting the art of combat since we learned to throw rocks." Within hours, Operation Earthborn was underway. Modified tanks and artillery pieces were deployed globally, their primitive-looking weapons concealing a fusion of human determination and alien technology. The extraterrestrial assault force would be expecting resistance from a primitive species desperately trying to match their advanced technology. Instead, they would face humanity fighting the way it always had, with innovation, adaptation, and the brutal efficiency that came from millennia of practice at the art of war. As Maya watched the first modified units roll out of the facility, she reflected on the irony. The aliens had probably expected Earth to be an easy target, a primitive world still taking its first steps into space. They hadn't realized that humanity's primitive technology wasn't a weakness. It was the result of countless refinements, tested in countless conflicts. "Begin mass production," Rodriguez ordered, watching the deployment feeds, "and get me a secure line to the Joint Chiefs. Tell them Operation Earthborn is ready for Phase 2. Maya nodded, already planning the next set of modifications. The aliens were about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous opponent wasn't the one with the most advanced technology. It was the one who knew how to use everything at their disposal, old and new alike. The war for Earth was entering a new phase, and humanity was about to demonstrate why being primitive didn't mean being helpless. Not when you had several thousand years of military innovation to draw upon. The Silicon Solution. James Chen stared at the ancient IBM mainframe that took up most of the basement at MIT's computer science building, his fingers hovering over a keyboard that was older than he was. Around him, dozens of similar machines hummed, technology that belonged in museums, brought back to life for a war nobody had expected. "It's like trying to hack a quantum computer with an abacus," Dr. Sarah Williams commented, adjusting her thick-rimmed glasses as she studied the output on a monochrome display. "But that's exactly why it's working." The alien vessels in orbit had proven nearly impossible to hack using modern systems. Their quantum computers operated on principles that made Earth's most advanced cybersecurity look like children's toys. But that wasn't what James and his team were using. "Another probe successful," he announced, watching green text scroll across the screen. "They're not even detecting our access attempts." Sarah nodded, making notes on actual paper. No tablets or smartphones allowed in this facility. "Of course they're not. Their intrusion detection systems are looking for quantum state changes, neural network patterns, AI-driven attacks. Not," she gestured at their setup, "whatever this is." James smiled. The whatever this is was a hybrid system of their own design. Vintage mainframes running custom operating systems written in COBOL and FORTRN, connected to salvaged alien communication crystals through interfaces that were deliberately engineered to be as primitive as possible. "Status report," a voice called from the doorway. Colonel Jessica Martinez entered, her uniform crisp despite the late hour. "Please tell me you've made progress." James straightened, suppressing a yawn. They'd been at this for days, ever since they'd discovered the first hint that the aliens' supposedly impenetrable systems had a blind spot. "We're in," he said simply. "Their quantum encryption is unbreakable, yes. Their neural networks are beyond anything we can match, but..." He pulled up a diagram on one of the old CRT monitors. "They never considered having to defend against assembly language and punch cards." Martins raised an eyebrow. "Explain." Sarah took over, her excitement evident. "Their systems are designed to detect and counter sophisticated attacks. Machine learning, quantum algorithms, advanced AI, but basic machine code. Simple, deterministic programs running on hardware that's barely more complex than a calculator. It's like trying to use a missile defense system to stop someone throwing pebbles. We've managed to insert our own code into their command and control networks," James continued. "Nothing complex. They'd detect that immediately. But small changes, basic logical operations, it's like we're speaking a language so old they don't even recognize it as communication." The colonel studied the screens, her expression thoughtful. "Can you affect their combat capabilities?" "Better," Sarah replied. "We can make them doubt their own systems. Small errors in navigation calculations. Tiny delays in weapon targeting. Nothing dramatic enough to trigger their self-repair protocols, but enough to give our forces an edge. James typed a series of commands, bringing up new displays. And we found something else. Their quantum communications network. It's incredibly advanced, but it has a fundamental weakness. It assumes all participants are using similarly advanced technology. He pressed enter, and across the room, an alien crystal pulsed with light. We can't decode their transmissions. We can't prevent them from communicating. But we can flood their network with noise they can't filter out, using nothing more sophisticated than amplitude modulation. Basic radio, essentially. They never developed countermeasures because no advanced civilization would still be using such primitive methods. Martinez's eyes narrowed. How quickly can you scale this up? We've already distributed the software to every major computing center that still has functional mainframes, Sarah answered. The Chinese are converting an entire abandoned Soviet-era facility into what they're calling a retrocomputing warfare center. The Indians are pulling vacuum tube computers out of storage. The aliens gave us a gift, James added quietly. They showed us that sometimes the old ways are the best ways, not because they're better, but because they're too simple to fail in the ways they expect. The colonel nodded decisively. Implement your attack plan. Full spectrum deployment. And get me a secure line to command. They need to know we found a way to fight back in the digital domain. As Martinez left, James turned back to his ancient keyboard. On the screen before him, green text continued to scroll, simple commands in forgotten languages, reaching out to touch systems so advanced they might as well be magic. You know what's really ironic? Sarah mused, starting up another batch of programs. We spent decades trying to develop quantum computing to replace all this old technology. Turns out, keeping it around might just save humanity. James nodded, fingers flying over the keys. Sometimes, humanity's greatest strength wasn't in advancing. It was in remembering. And right now, those memories of simpler times might just be the key to winning an interstellar war. The Endless Night Strategy. Captain Maria Rise floated silently in the command module of the HMS Silent Hunter, surrounded by displays showing nothing but stars. The ship's systems were running at minimal power. No engines, no active sensors, just enough life support to keep her crew alive. They were invisible out here in the asteroid belt, their hull covered in the same dark material that made stealth aircraft impossible to detect. Contact, whispered Lieutenant Ahmed through the comm system. Even their internal communications were kept to bare minimums. 3 crystal ships passing through Zone 7. Maria smiled in the darkness. Zone 7 wasn't a coincidence. It was exactly where they wanted the aliens to be. Status of the packages. All in position. Ahmed replied. Mining charges are armed and ready. The mining charges were another example of humanity turning its limitations into advantages. Simple nuclear devices, originally designed to break up asteroids for mineral extraction, now repurposed for war. The aliens' sophisticated sensors could detect the energy signatures of modern weapons from millions of kilometers away. But old-style nuclear weapons shielded inside nickel-iron asteroids. They were just more rocks in a belt full of rocks. Begin Operation Avalanche, Maria commanded. Tell all ships to maintain emission silence. Across the asteroid belt, other ships like the Silent Hunter waited in the void. They weren't the sleek, powerful vessels of science fiction. They were essentially space-going submarines designed to operate with minimal power signatures, using technology that would have been familiar to Cold War veterans. The alien vessels moved exactly as predicted, their crystalline forms refracting starlight as they pursued what they thought was a damaged Earth cargo ship, actually a drone running a deliberately noisy reactor signature. Detonation in 5. Ahmed counted down. 4, 3, 2, 1. There was no sound in space, but Maria's tactical display lit up as dozens of nuclear devices detonated simultaneously. The explosions themselves weren't the weapon, it was the asteroids they shattered, turning solid rock into clouds of hypersonic shrapnel. The alien ship's quantum shields flared as they tried to defend against the debris field, but they couldn't maintain their shields across their entire surface area, not against thousands of impacts coming from every direction. It was like trying to stop a sandstorm with an umbrella. Multiple hits confirmed, Ond reported, satisfaction evident in his voice. 2 targets showing significant damage. 3rd target, direct impact with a major fragment. Complete structural failure. Maria nodded. Launched the hunters. From the Silent Hunter and her sister ships, small drones emerged. They were barely more than engines attached to primitive guidance systems and salvaged alien crystal fragments. Fragments that resonated with the same frequency as the alien ship's hulls. They're trying to phase shift, Ond warned. Standard evasive pattern. Let them, Maria replied calmly. The aliens had learned to use their quantum technology to partially shift out of normal space whenever they detected threats. But the hunter drones weren't trying to attack them directly. They were creating resonance frequencies, turning the aliens' own crystalline technology against them. The effect was devastating. The damaged alien ships, their structural integrity already compromised by the asteroid bombardment, began to vibrate at their resonant frequencies. Cracks spread through their beautiful crystalline forms. Target 1 has fractured, Ond announced. Target 2. Target 2 is breaking apart. Target 3 is attempting emergency repairs, but the resonance is preventing their self-healing systems from functioning. Maria allowed herself a moment of satisfaction before keying her comm. All ships, begin Phase 2. Time to show them why humanity wrote the book on asymmetric warfare. Across the asteroid belt, more ships like the Silent Hunter powered up their engines. They weren't trying to match the aliens' technology. They were using the environment itself as a weapon, turning space debris into ammunition, using simple physics to defeat advanced quantum mechanics. We're detecting more alien signatures entering the belt, Ond reported. Looks like they're finally realizing this wasn't a random attack. Good, Maria responded. Send word to command. Tell them Operation Avalanche was a success, and we're ready to begin widespread deployment of the strategy. As her ship moved silently through the debris field they'd created, Maria reflected on humanity's journey to this moment. The aliens had expected to face a primitive species struggling to match their advanced technology. Instead, they'd found a race that had spent millennia perfecting the art of fighting against superior forces. Prep the next set of charges, she ordered, and get me a secure channel to the other captains. It's time to show these aliens why you don't pick a fight with a species that turned guerrilla warfare into a science. The Silent Hunter disappeared back into the darkness of space, just another shadow among countless others. The asteroid belt had become humanity's jungle, and they were teaching their alien adversaries a lesson that countless empires had learned throughout Earth's history. Sometimes the most dangerous enemy isn't the one with the best technology. It's the one who knows how to turn everything into a weapon. Dawn of the Human Era. Admiral David Chen stood in the Combined Earth Defense Force Command Center, watching as humanity prepared to launch its most ambitious counteroffensive of the war. The massive underground facility, buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, hummed with activity that would have seemed bizarre just months ago. Modern quantum computers sat side by side with chattering vacuum tube machines. Holographic displays showed tactical data next to green-screen CRT monitors. Military officers from every major nation on Earth coordinated their forces using technology that spanned centuries of human innovation. Final status report, he commanded. Dr. Maya Patel spoke first from her station. Modified artillery units are in position globally. Hybrid weapons are showing green across the board. The aliens still haven't figured out how to counter medium-velocity kinetic penetrators. James Chen, no relation, followed from his retrocomputing station. COBOL attack programs are loaded and running. We're already seeing degradation in their quantum navigation networks. They keep trying to adapt their countermeasures, but they can't defend against code so primitive it might as well be static. Operation Avalanche forces are in position throughout the asteroid belt. Captain Rice reported via quantum-encrypted radio, ready to trigger the largest coordinated debris field attack in human history. Admiral Chen nodded, studying the tactical display. The alien fleet hung in high orbit, their crystalline ships gathering for what they clearly intended to be a final, overwhelming assault on Earth. They had committed nearly their entire force to this attack, exactly as humanity had planned. "Begin Operation Legacy," he ordered. "All units, execute on my mark." The first phase began silently. Throughout the alien fleet, navigation systems began reporting subtle errors. Targeting computers delivered calculations that were just slightly off. Communication networks filled with untraceable interference that their quantum filters couldn't screen out. "They're responding," James reported, "trying to isolate and purge the corrupted systems. But they can't find our code. It's too simple to register on their security scans." The aliens' formation began to show signs of disarray. Ships moved out of position, their precise spacing disrupted by navigation errors they couldn't trace. That's when Maya's artillery units opened fire. Modified tank guns and naval rifles around the globe pointed skyward, launching salvaged alien crystals wrapped in simple steel jackets. The projectiles moved too slowly to trigger the aliens' automatic defenses, but fast enough to punch through their hulls when they hit. "Multiple impacts confirmed," Maya announced. "Their point defense systems are still targeting at the wrong velocities. They haven't adapted to the speed differential." The alien fleet began to respond, their ships maneuvering to present their strongest shields toward Earth. That's when Captain Rice's forces struck from the asteroid belt. Hundreds of nuclear devices detonated simultaneously, turning the natural debris of the solar system into an expanding cloud of hypersonic shrapnel. The aliens found themselves caught between two threats: slower projectiles from Earth that their shields couldn't stop, and faster debris from space that they couldn't shield against completely. 30% of enemy fleet showing critical damage, Tactical reported. "They're attempting to regroup." Correction, they're attempting to retreat. "Not this time," Admiral Chen said quietly. "Launch the resonance drones." The final piece of humanity's strategy deployed. Swarms of simple drones carrying salvage alien crystal fragments. They weren't weapons themselves, but they turned the aliens' own technology against them, creating feedback loops that shook their ships apart at the molecular level. "Enemy fleet is breaking up," James reported. "Their quantum command network is collapsing. We're detecting emergency teleportation signatures. Many of them are failing due to our interference." Admiral Chen watched as humanity's impossible victory unfolded. The aliens had brought quantum technology, advanced AI, and weaponry that could reshape space itself. Humanity had responded with vacuum tubes, mechanical computers, and weapons that would have been familiar to World War II veterans. "Send word to all commands," he ordered. "Operation Legacy is a success. Begin pursuit operations. Don't let them establish another foothold in our solar system." As the remains of the alien fleet flood into deep space, Chen reflected on the lessons they'd learned. The aliens had assumed that primitive technology meant primitive thinking. They'd forgotten that humanity's outdated weapons and tactics weren't outdated at all. They were the refined products of thousands of years of warfare, tested and improved through countless conflicts. "Send a message on all frequencies," he commanded. "Let any other alien civilizations watching know that Earth is not an easy target. We may be newcomers to interstellar war, but we are very, very good at adapting." The battle for Earth was over. The human era of galactic history was about to begin. And thanks to the lessons learned in this conflict, humanity would go to the stars not trying to match alien technology, but proud of their own unique approach to warfare and innovation. As cleanup operations began, Admiral Chen authorized the release of a simple message to Earth's population: victory achieved through human ingenuity. The stars are now open to us. In the end, humanity's greatest weakness, their primitive technology, had proven to be their greatest strength. They had reminded the galaxy of an ancient truth: Sometimes the most dangerous opponent isn't the most advanced one. It's the one who knows how to use everything at their disposal, from the oldest technology to the newest innovations, in ways their enemies never expect.